The financials are here, but recall isn't. Happy November, friends. It is November. Hopefully your Halloween was joyous and whatever else. And it is Friday, which means we are in a good mood. It is November, which is... there's something to say about it being November. I don't know what happened to October, but it is gone. And so there was a lot. Like there's earnings, there's Microsoft going to war with Google, Black Ops is out. So there is a lot to talk about. Let's waste no time and jump right into the juicy tech news details. So kicking it off here are the financial details. So Microsoft reported earnings and they made $65.6 billion dues. That it's just an incredible amount of money. 24.7 billion is the number of dollar dues they are putting into the bank after they pay all their bills. So they are in an extremely healthy position. Breaking it down by individual entities, you got their business segment, their productivity and business segment at 28.3 billion, intelligent cloud at 24.1 billion, and more personal computing, which is mostly, honestly, what I care about these days, which is Windows and Surface and Xbox. Now, the crazy thing about this is that all three of these major business units used to be like roughly about the same size in terms of revenue, but clearly the other two segments have doubled, while more personal computing has just kind of stagnated a little bit, is probably a fair way to say it. However, Windows OEM, and this actually makes me sad here, Windows OEM and devices revenue increased 2%. The reason why I call this specific number out is that it used to be where Surface was, right? We used to get a Surface number about how it was doing, but at this point, it's just too small of an entity for them to break out, and they've just lumped it into something else, and so... we don't really have optics in how Surface is going to be doing anymore, which is just not great. And then Xbox content and services increased 61%. Xbox hardware revenue was actually down 29%. So there you go. If you are still running Windows 10 and you want to contribute to Microsoft's bottom line, you will soon have an option for $30 dues to be able to extend updates for at least an additional year. Microsoft isn't saying if there's going to be more years, but that is what they are going to be charging. So $30 is what it'll cost to continue to get Windows 10 updates after it happens. So other things that you can't get, even if you wanted it right now, is Windows Recall. Microsoft has said that they are going to be delaying it again. Originally, what was it supposed to be here in June, and then this month, and now it's not going to arrive until at least December, with Microsoft saying they're committed to delivering a secure and trusted experience with Recall, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. I mean, the reality is Microsoft announced Recall, then Apple announced its stuff. Apple has now shipped its stuff. It's also shipped new hardware as of the 8th of this upcoming month. And so, yeah, like Microsoft, what are you doing? Now, someone will chime in and say, but they've shipped super upscaling or whatever for Copilot Plus PCs. That's fine. But the hero feature was Recall. And this, like, it really just digs the claws into, like, how screwed up this initial announcement actually was going to be. Like, if they could have even shipped it in June. So, anyways, wait until December, which I guess is, yeah. So, anyways, Windows Recall, you can't use it. The recall has been recalled, I don't know, like it's the second time it's been delayed since it's been announced. Whatever. If you're looking for a cool new app, Fantastical Calendar app is now available on Windows. Super cool app, independent developer. Got to support those guys. If you need a calendar app, it's definitely a place to look. Now, Microsoft has gone a bit on the offensive this week with calling Google's shadow campaign Scroogled, if you will. It's like an inverse Scroogled or something like that. I don't know. Basically, here's the TLDR. Microsoft is accusing Google of using small European cloud companies to file complaints. The basic complaint is this, and I'm glossing over some details here, but the basic idea is that if you have a Windows Server license for on-premises stuff, you should be able to use that same license in a cloud server environment. So basically, like, hey, I already bought a Windows Server and I'm not using it in my own data center. I want to use it in Google Cloud. I should be able to reuse that same license. Microsoft says, no, you can't. And Google is like, well, maybe they should. And so, like, if you're a small vendor, you're not going up against Microsoft. You don't want to piss them off. That's the thing. So what Google has done is trying to organize these smaller cloud vendors at the end of the day to go to the EU and fight on their behalf. Now, Google, like Microsoft accuses Google of not being transparent about this. and that they are like a shadow figure organizing all this stuff. And Google, for their part, saying like, no, we're not a shadow figure. We are on the board and we are not trying to hide that stuff. So it's a politicking, if you know what I mean. And so, Microsoft going on offensive here because they've, for the most part-ish, I don't know, stayed out of the limelight when it comes to this regulatory stuff. But here we are with them doing that. Meta, I'm going to screw this name up, but VPJ Parikh, I'm guaranteeing I'm screwing that up, has joined Microsoft from Meta. And this is a big deal because he's joining the senior leadership team. So it's not like he's a subordinate, like he's going all the way top, reporting to Satya, and he's going to be in charge of big cloud, or I should say big infrastructure. That is what he did at Meta, and that is what he's going to be doing at Microsoft. So that was apparently a very big get for the company at the end of the day. So the other big thing that is really happening that involves Google, but Microsoft some too, is there's a new search, like Search GPT is now here, and anybody can go use it. I don't know if you have to be paying as a premium customer. I am, and so I've used it. It's interesting. This is massive. If Search GPT can make even a fractional dent, if they could somehow get 5% of Google's search market share, it would be cataclysmic for Google, and it would be huge for OpenAI. So we will see. Like a lot of us grew up, working the worlds of SEO, and now we're gonna have. Is it like GPTO? Like you got to optimize for Google for ChatGPT to try to get those search results. I don't know. It's super interesting, super duper early to see if they can actually kind of, get people away from Google. Right? It's like typing in the address bar is just a very natural thing, and Google has a very strong position in the market. Some would say even a monopolistic position. Depends on where you fall on that side of the coin. Doesn't really matter. Either way, Search GPT is here. We should all cross our fingers that it is more competition for search. Bing as well. I know someone's going to be like, Brad, but you're not talking about Bing. But what about Bing? Well, yeah, Bing too. But let's be real. The juggernaut is Google, and that's who you're trying to topple. Microsoft and OpenAI are, very closely linked. And so whatever else, something to keep your eye on. It's very much something to keep your eye on. So jumping over to the gaming news, because there's gaming news going around too. So Halo 2's 20th anniversary is just around the corner, and they're going to be dropping a bunch of maps like Lockout, Warlock, Midship, Sanctuary, Beaver Creek, and I think Turf are also going to be coming to Halo Infinite. I think these were all built in the new Forge, which would make a lot of sense. But either way, a little throwback for that. Call of Duty's Black Ops 6 off to a banging start. They are saying that the first 3 days was their biggest gaming weekend ever. So whatever, Black Ops 6, I think it's pretty darn good. I've been playing it a lot. I like the multiplayer. I was a little hesitant on the Omni movement, and there's some funkiness to it, but it's grown on me. If you haven't tried it yet, but if you have ever played Apex Legends, like that real glidey sort of experience, that is like what it feels like. That's the best way I can think of describing it, because it is definitely different than older Call of Duty games for sure. And I'll be very curious to see how this changes how Warzone is played with the longer slide strides and being able to turn while you're sliding and that sort of stuff. I have only played one level of the campaign so far. I typically don't. Campaigns aren't my thing. They're just not my thing. But the multiplayer, it's really good. It's really fun. I am enjoying it. And I look forward to seeing how they continue to evolve everything within that. The Xbox app is going to be updated if you have not already received it. I believe it's in trial for some like insiders or something like that. Just getting a refresh, right? Remember, they're combining a lot of things into the Xbox app on the mobile side, and we're getting refreshes on the PC side as well. So those are the big things that are happening in tech and on the gaming side. But now we are going to jump on over to my favorite part of the week, which are the questions. So first question comes here from Hacky Sacked. He says, how has Copilot changed your workflow, if at all? Now, I will tell you that Copilot hasn't changed it at all. ChatGPT, on the other hand, most certainly has, right? So I'm trying not to always talk about the things that I do for a career, but like we built a tool called Desktop GPT, and with the primary catalyst for this was like my daily tasks. Like I have certain things that are very repetitive that we do all the time. I'm going to take the easiest example. the easiest example, which is the hardest thing to say. Subject email lines, right? We have a mailer, we send emails, right? We send email marketing campaigns. We have a template that is built that allows you to take all of the different key attributes of the sale, if it's a blog post, if it's a whatever, and put it into a template, and then it kicks out 10 examples of potential subject lines for the email. That is just like one way, and that template experience is why we built Desktop GPT. It's like we needed this tool internally because here's another example. I get data from Steam all the time about our sales, and I have to format it a specific way. Well, we built a little template where I can drop the data in, and it will kick out the format into a CSV in a way that is easier to dump into Excel and do what I need, because copying and pasting it out of Steam doesn't work super well, and some of their analytics just aren't quite to the level that I need. And so Desktop GPT became an app because we had to build out and flesh out an experience like that. So, and that is all driven on the back end by ChatGPT. We just built effectively a different interface. So it's definitely impacted things. He says, what's a real world use for Recall? Recall, the best way that Recall will make things better is search. That is the goal here. It's not... Microsoft had a thing called Timeline where you can like scroll back through and like, bam, get right back into a specific state. That will be a use case that they will promote. But I think the best thing about Recall will actually just be improving Windows search, because not only does it know the file names and metadata, it also knows like what was going on your screen that might not be what the file was called. For example, if you had a PowerPoint that had a red chair in it and you couldn't think of the name of the presentation, but you're like, I know it had a red chair, that search experience, in theory, based on what Recall is supposed to do, should surface that material. So there you go. Rafik says, hi, Brad. Do you think the number of Game Pass subscribers has exceeded 40 million? Considering that Microsoft said it was one of their strongest, it was the strongest signup, I think it has exceeded 40 million. What do you think this number is? Microsoft is trying to achieve 50 million. Will that be enough for them, or do you think they will make a version of Game Pass specific for mobile games and blah, and go on? I almost said blah, blah, blah as I was reading through that. I bet the next number that they give us, 45. I think that's the next number. That's my guess. And this is not, if there's any like financial analysts who are going to go buy some stocks, like that's my guess. That's my guess. That I'll just say that's my guess is 45. Again, there you go. Lind Hartson says, put on your Stardock hat. My Stardock hat is on. How has development for ARM been? Are there new difficulties with ARM that you've seen that might clue us into whether other software makers will put effort into ARM to port? And how's availability of hardware to test on? The availability of hardware to test on is just what are you willing to spend? I mean, at this point, we at Stardock just went out and bought a top-end Surface laptop. Was it the ARM version? I think it's Surface Laptop 7, right? And so we did that. Like, we don't need a fleet of these things. The challenges we've had with ARM, they're relatively minor, with one minor instance. Like, if you need to write a driver, you can't self-sign a driver like you can on x86. You actually have to get Microsoft to do all this. And so where this comes into play is Multiplicity 4, which has a feature called Seamless Display, which would allow you to use a laptop as a secondary screen. So if you have two laptops side by side, you can basically hijack the screen of one and make it like you have dual monitors. We can't do that currently where the ARM device is the primary and then like an x86 is secondary. It's fine if the x86 is primary and the ARM is secondary, but because we had to write our own driver, which means we have to get it signed and get it, WHQL processed through Microsoft, that has been one of the bigger hangups. From a real technical perspective, there's nothing major, other than more of like the logistics of just having an ARM device, making sure your binaries are ready, making sure you have your drivers and that sort of stuff. So Mr. PKI with a double dose of questions. He says, how has Call of Duty 6 been so far? Any issues from your experience? So generally speaking, the launch was actually pretty smooth. Yeah, there were some hiccups, but like anybody who's played Call of Duty throughout the years knows the experience of launch day of like servers crash and lag, bad spawns, that sort of stuff. Now, there's definitely been some bad spawns. They've got to work on that. But generally speaking, it's been good. There were definitely bugs in the game, especially if you had like custom loadouts and there were some XP not calculating correctly. But overall, honestly, I think it went pretty well for Microsoft, and the numbers seem to indicate it based on what we have heard. So, Mr. PKI says, on your podcast, you get all your followers and ad fees from YouTube. Does that mean all Zune listeners are dead weight from a revenue perspective since they only use the RSS feed? I don't want to say dead weight. Dead weight would be whatever. Your ears are the golden reason I am here, Mr. Zune listeners of the world. In theory, yes, the money comes from the visual ads or the ads on YouTube at the end of the day. Anybody who listens to this on the audio side knows there's no ads unless I do like a read, which I think it's been over a year since I've done a read, which, by the way, not to pat myself on the back, but I've turned down a ton. It's like, this is like prime, like, everybody wants you to read ads. I got like a couple different controller ones. I got a chair offer, and like I'd look at them because it's always like, maybe it makes sense, but like, can you imagine it's like, hey guys, thanks for listening to this podcast. Please buy this chair. Like, it's not even, the only chair that I'm interested in is like, it's like that one that's an Xbox collab and it's like $1,500, and I am not buying a $1,500 chair right now. No, this is not happening. So, yeah, you're kind of dead weight. But again, anybody who's listening to this for more than 5 minutes, I do this because I enjoy it. I enjoy this interactivity. I enjoy just being able to dump my brain around this stuff. It's a hobby. It's not a career, which is a big difference, at least for now. Keen2 says, hi Brad, you have mentioned in the past playing games with your kid. Absolutely have. What age did you introduce your daughter to video games, and what games on console would you recommend starting off? This one I can absolutely answer. So I want to say she was 7 or 8 is how long have I had my car? Because the first video game I actually ever played with my daughter in any meaningful capacity was Cat Quest. And so we played Cat Quest 1 because it came on the Tesla thing in the car. And so she was 7. 7 is what she was. So here's what my honest recommendation would be, especially if you have Xbox, and if you have, I think it's not on Game Pass. It doesn't matter. Their games are cheap. Get an Xbox or whatever platform, and get Cat Quest 2. You could play Cat Quest 1. Like if you're trying to just introduce your daughter to gaming, or I shouldn't say daughter, child into gaming, Cat Quest 1 is fine. The problem with Cat Quest 1 is that it's a solo game. So there's no co-op or anything else. Cat Quest 2, you can do couch co-op. I think you can do couch co-op. You can definitely do co-op. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can do couch co-op. And Cat Quest 3, you can absolutely do couch co-op. And so Cat Quest is a very fun, lighthearted pun. You can set the difficulty to like real easy, and it's just a nice casual playthrough. And so we've played Cat Quest. There's a Bluey game, but I don't really recommend the Bluey game. And then if you don't want to do Cat Quest games, there's a ton of different Lego games. The Lego series, there's like a Lego Harry Potter that we played through. And so like those games are all awesome, super kid friendly, not scary at all, and just kind of they're fun. Like they're just fun games to play with your kid. And Will, with the last question of the week, as I smack my glass of water, this is a great one. Do you expect there will be a new major Windows version in 2025, or will we continue with just Windows 11? Here's why I hope there's a new version. I hope there's a new version that requires an NPU. And I think that's the next big thing that needs to happen. And that's what I hope to see is Windows 12, is Microsoft. Once again, they did it with Windows 11, which kind of probably screwed them a little bit here with the TPM 2.0, trying to force people up. But I think Windows, they need to do like a proper AI version of Windows and say the AI starts here. Because right now, where does AI start? It starts with Windows 11 Copilot plus PC. Like, it's just the most Microsoft name ever. I wish they would have just called it Windows 12 and just been done with it and just sucked it up. I'm guessing they have some other plan or something. I hope we see a Windows 12 in 2025. I don't know. This Copilot plus PC garbage is a frustrating and annoying thing. It's like, just because I want there to be I want there to be an NPU that I can buy that I can just slap into a PC and get that experience and get those features and functionality. But right now we don't really have, we don't have it at all, really. I don't think. I mean, it's on the CPU on some of these things, but I don't know if it unlocks the whole Copilot Plus PC at the end of the day. And so the Copilot Plus PC, which is hard to say, and I keep saying it over and over and over again, it's the most Microsoft thing ever, right? This is where they fall apart with their branding and they just make the hard decision and just do the right thing that's easier to understand, because now people are going to go into the store and be like, I want a Windows 11 PC, and they're like, do you want a Copilot Plus PC or just a Windows 11 PC? And people are going to be, I don't know what the hell that means. Like, it's just Microsoft. God bless them. So anyways, there you go. I really tried to cram all that in. It was actually like with the Google stuff, the shadow people or whatever Microsoft called them. And then you've got recall being delayed. Like, just delay recall and ship it with Windows 12. Just do that. Make life easy. And then if Microsoft actually did do that, then I would be like, okay, you know what? I take back every mean thing I said about delaying it, and this makes more sense. But they're not going to announce Windows 12 in December. I mean, the best scenario you could get, maybe this, let's try to be optimistic. They say Windows 12 starts testing in December. It goes all the way up to build, and at build, they announce Windows 12 and say Windows 12 is coming with Copilot, and it'll be default for everybody who buys a Windows 12 device, blah, 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 and it ships in October. Maybe that's it. But even then, that's a really drawn out timeline for what should be happening in the Windows arc, who Microsoft keeps telling us are agile, nimble, we can ship these builds whenever we want. But when it comes to getting new functionality out the door, they're kind of dragging their feet a little bit. So, well, I certainly didn't drag my feet on this podcast. I feel like I talked really quickly through it, but that's how my brain works. That's how it is. Happy Friday, friends. It is November, and as always, make sure to keep it subscribed here, because the only BS on this podcast is me.